Okay, let's review competition results for year three. So in year three, we have points ranging from 848 all the way down to 29. So remember, over 400 is what you need, and we see that two-thirds of the class, maybe even 75%, have achieved that. So that's excellent. So the points earned in this round go into your cumulative points. So total points after 3 rounds, most teams are more than halfway there to the total points you need to get the full points for the simulation. So most teams are far and ahead. There's only a few teams um, that are less than half the way there, but still pretty close. And you can see that when you do well, you can make a lot of points. So even if you are one of the teams that is behind, you can easily catch up in the simulation. Okay. So profit margins, some teams got up to one team got up to 58%. So some teams are in the 50 percentile of gross profit, and a lot of teams are still at above 40%. Now we started at 40%, so these teams here still aren't getting the message after multiple videos. This will be the third video where I say your gross profit margins have to be above where you started, which was 40. So these teams need to get that above 40. I don't know why they're not listening to me. They're probably just not watching the videos. Everybody else, you have to get your profit margin higher than where it was last round, because remember, you have to. Businesses are like sharks. They have to constantly grow, move forward, and make more profits. That's what investors are expecting and looking for. And we have, based on how a company does in their profits, outstanding shares, earnings per share, uh, rev, um, I guess revenue growth to a lesser extent, but mostly wealth generation to a large extent affects stock price. So stock prices here we have a wide range since so many teams have different strategies deploying different numbers, but they're all competing for the same pool of cars. So the teams with the better strategies have been pulling the higher stock price up. So as I've seen teams with higher gross profit margins, higher earnings per share, they have been achieving the higher stock prices. Remember, return on equity is the amount of return you get for the actual capital invested in the company by the original um, investors that has turned to equity. So basically, what that means is this is the money that is in the company that is not owed. It's not a liability. So we look at the return on equities plus liabilities equal assets. So we look at the capital equity portion of the company and see what type of return that generates. Okay, we have total points, which I talked about before, and operating margin. This is really a measure how efficiently you advertise. And you starting out with high gross margins, you'll get higher operating margins as long as your advertising is not too generous. Earnings per share, simple net profits divided by outstanding shares. How can you make that better? Well, one way is to buy back stock. Why do you think so many companies are always doing these stock buybacks in the real world? Because it reduces the outstanding shares and helps pump up their earnings per share. And return on assets, looking at our profits related to the total assets we have for the company. And if you have bloated assets that aren't being utilized, you're not going to have a high return on assets. And of course, net profit margin is after you pay your interest and taxes on your percentage, and this should be at this by this round should be above 20%, and most teams are above 20%. And revenues, of course, is how efficiently you market and build and design your vehicles to create demand. You just have to make sure whatever demand you create, you can turn into profits. And most companies seem pretty good to turn revenues. Total asset turnover looks at your assets, how your assets generate revenues. So, for example, if you have these two companies are pretty close to two. If they have $100 million in assets, then they have $200 million in sales. So it's about utilizing your assets as efficiently as possible. Okay, it's like one reason, there are many reasons red mangoes are failing across the country, those frozen yogurt shops. one of the reasons is their assets are, you need a lot of those frozen yogurt machines to put in that store. And those frozen yogurt machines cost money, and they're sort of an anchor around the success of that store. Well, other stores like Ralph's Ices can just have a bunch of refrigerators and spoons and have very low assets to open a store, and they can typically, without the burden of supporting those assets, can do much better running the store. Okay, so this is where you were. You were in round three, so I'm going to go what I would have done for round three, and I purposely left round three to have a lot of problems, like most teams had. I had a deficit. I had I wasn't able to grow my profit margins as much, and I had some bad returns on equity investment, and my earnings per share actually was pretty good. My return on assets was low, so I had the problems most teams have had, and I had below 400 points. So let's see if I was a student like you were last round, completing year three. I would have first reviewed my assessment page and the help. I would have looked at the charts, especially the performance chart. And I have a lot of students that email me and say, I'm not doing well and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And then when I talk to them, it turns out they haven't watched the videos, they haven't played any practice rounds, they haven't read the assessment tab or the user guide. So once we get to the bottom of what they haven't done and they do it, they seem to do much better. So that's why every round in this video I keep reinforcing that. The performance charts, like I've said before, the most important one is the one at the bottom, where you want to see, I'm doing fine on these two vehicles, but I am under forecasting on these two vehicles, the truck and luxury. So I need to keep that in mind when I do my new forecasting. Okay. Industry page, check out my competitors, and then go to sales and redevelop my cars. Now I have a higher operational cost reductions because I saw that was a weakness in my assessments last round. So I've chosen to increase that. All right. Now let's see. So I'm just designing my vehicles. I know I can't make the vehicles that would generate the highest demand. So I'm just going to focus on trying to make vehicles I could reasonably sell, that customers would still appreciate, but would not destroy my profit margins. And companies do this all the time. They reduce the size of products, they replace materials, go from metals to plastics. They do whatever they can to reduce the cost and try to gain some profits to please their shareholders. And sometimes they go too far. Investors, they can tell how different the product is, and they stop buying it, and they have to rethink what they're doing. And in plenty of products, they've gone to the point where it's just so ridiculous. But many successful companies have been able to redesign the products in a way that you don't notice. For example, yogurt, ice cream, paper towels, garbage bags, Oreo cookies, Chips Ahoy, cereal boxes. A number of these products have greatly reduced the contents, even though redesigning the packaging to make it look like it's the same size by dimpling the bottom, changing the curvature of the product or the facing of it to try to make you believe that you're buying the same product. Well, meanwhile, they're saving tons of money. All right. So I redesigned my sales. Let me just lock that in as I go back. On my overview, I left off at gross profit margin of 60%. So in my sales, I have to do better than 60%. So here, in some categories, already, I am not better than, all right. So I got that up a little bit. I'm trying to. You should get between 3 and 5, at least 3 and 5% higher on your categories. All right. And you see how tough it is to really do that consistently. So this one's actually below. I don't know if I can go. There's not much more I could do here. All right, I got that above. So it's difficult to, you know, but this is the biggest priority is to really go in there and try to um, get those percentages up. Okay, so I did better on the sales. Now I can, at least I'm above that gross margin percentile on all my vehicles. Advertising, I'm just going to pause because it takes a while to do this. I don't want to waste your time, and then we'll move into production. Okay, I'm in production, and let's see here. I need a new production plant here and here. Actually, I have an extra 400 cars here. Just going to keep that in mind for a second because I could resell those. So let me just see economy. What did I sell in economy? 25 goes to 25%. So you know what? I'm going to split the difference. Let's make that 32. So I have some inventory. I think I could sell an extra 200. Oops, I still got to finish the marketing. All right, so okay, 27. Okay, input my numbers, and now I'm going to increase. See if I have enough cash to increase my operational budget. And go straight to my deficit and see where I am. Oh, I have $26 million surplus. So I'm pretty good on that. I'm going to retire. Just going to retire a little bit of my debt to help with my net income percentage. All right, so I'm going to process this round and let's see how I do. So now I'm lined up with you guys. We're all in working on year 4. So in year 4 I was able to get 500 points, which is 100 above average, and I was able to increase my profit margins by 5% on gross, 4% on operations, and 3% on net. And my return on equity still disappointed. However, I was able to forecast more efficiently, earn a few points there. I lost a little point on truck. I had a surplus, and I had increased my operational investment, so I got to that 500 points. So that's a way in how I would have done round 3, and now you're in round 4. We're halfway mark. We have 3 rounds to go, and I hope you found this video helpful. And remember, if you're still having trouble not performing to the level that you'd like, the teams have been doing well in the simulation in our class have, like I said, gone over their assessment tab, looked at the hints in the assessment tab, run multiple practice rounds, have read the user guide, have watched these videos. So these are some of the things that make you successful. Okay, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.